Breaking tonight, Donald Trump is slapping tariffs on steel and aluminum, including from Canada.
This is the beginning of making America rich again.
Ottawa's response as industries brace.
I think it'll be bad for everybody.
From cars to appliances, we break down what the tariffs could mean for you and why Trump's real target probably isn't Canada. And Trump won't back down on making Canada the 51st state.
He said annexing Canada is a real thing. Those are his words.
What is behind this threat? Ceasefire at risk. Hamas refuses to release more hostages and accuses Israel of violating the truce.
All hell is going to break out.
Donald Trump's new ultimatum for Hamas.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Well, Donald Trump has made good on his latest tariff threat. With the stroke of a Sharpie tonight in the Oval Office, he imposed a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports, including those from Canada. He told reporters there are no exceptions, no exemptions, though Canadian politicians and industry leaders are certainly pushing for one. And he made clear more countries and more goods are in line to be next. These tariffs, though, come with a date attached. They are supposed to kick in March the 4th. And that could have major ramifications on both sides of the border. Katie Simpson begins our coverage tonight with what Trump said in the Oval Office.
This is the beginning of making America rich again.
And with his Sharpie, Donald Trump fires another shot in his global trade war in ordering 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports. No exceptions, no exemptions. The president says he's trying to boost U.S. manufacturing.
If we make it in the United States, we don't need it to be made in Canada. We'll have the jobs. That's why Canada should be our 51st state.
The new tariffs start March 4th, the same deadline Trump set for his separate tariff threat against Canada and Mexico over his border safety demands.
I think that he's using tariffs as general leverage to get a bunch of concessions from trading partners that he can get.
Canada is by far the largest foreign supplier of both steel and aluminum into the U.S. market. Experts warn this will have a significant impact across the North American supply chain.
Prices are going to rise, particularly on steel, and that's going to then hurt production. And I think then manufacturing is going to slow down. And when manufacturing slows down, then I think that labor is going to be directly impacted.
And Trump's tariff threat does not end here. He says he's considering targeting cars, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductor chips. He's also planning new blanket tariffs on all U.S. trading partners.
It's reciprocal. We want tariffs to be fair. If they charge us, we charge them.
Tomorrow, the reciprocal tariffs?
We'll be doing reciprocal over the next, I would say, 2 days.
American consumers are once again being warned all of this will make everyday life more expensive, though the White House thinks it will be worth it in the long run.
The president has a set of advisors who just are far more committed to the economic theory that tariffs work.
Even though American companies are paying the tariffs, the U.S. government collects the money, and Trump's team sees that revenue as a way to pay for some of the big promises he made during the election campaign. Think things like tax cuts. Plus, some groups are happy. The American Primary Aluminum Association supports the tariffs, and American steel companies had a good day on the markets.
So, Katie, I know you've been working the phone. So at this point, what do you know about Canada's initial response?
A senior Canadian government source tells me the Trump administration did not give Canada formal notice about these tariffs, unlike the last round of threats. Ottawa is now looking to build a coordinated response with like-minded allies, since these threats apply to everyone. The Prime Minister has been having conversations with his counterparts on the world stage, and that will continue as the response is finalized.
Okay. Katie Simpson in Washington. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
So Canada's official reaction tonight is condemnation and a promise to respond. And as Evan Dyer shows us, politicians of all stripes have some ideas as to how to do that.
With Justin Trudeau in France for an international summit, it was Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne who responded, posting on social media that the tariffs are totally unjustified and promising the response will be clear and calibrated. The government has frequently said its strategy is to try to retaliate to any U.S. tariffs dollar for dollar. Earlier, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said he'd take the same approach.
We will retaliate in kind with matching tariffs on American aluminum and steel, all of the proceeds of which will be given back to our steel and aluminum industry.
New Democrat Jagmeet Singh spent the day in Windsor, one of Canada's most vulnerable cities, and also hit the U.S. news shows.
The only language that bullies understand is a language of strength.
Singh proposed a response already suggested by Liberal leadership contender Chrystia Freeland, targeting the business of Trump's most important collaborator.
What I would do is put in place a 100% tariff on Tesla, directly targeting Elon Musk. I've also said we should shut down the supply of critical minerals, another move that directly targets Elon Musk and his Tesla company.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he also supports retaliation and warned Ontarians not to take Trump's threats lightly.
He said annexing Canada is a real thing. Those are his words. I know it's hard to hear. I know you want to, make sure and hope it's all bluster and all talk, but this threat is real.
Canada's been down this road before with 10% tariffs on aluminum and 25% on steel during Trump's first term. On that occasion, the industry weathered the storm. This time, Canada's waiting to see if the rest of its economy will join the metals sector under tariffs within a few weeks' time. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
So some context here. Canada is by far the largest supplier of steel and aluminum to U.S. industries. Last year alone, this country exported roughly $8 billion U.S. worth of steel to our southern neighbor, and even more when it comes to aluminum, about $11 billion worth exported to the U.S. So these tariffs will have a big impact on both industries. Nisha Patel is speaking with Canadian steel producers and has more now on how they're bracing for impact.
Hamilton, Ontario is known as Steel Town. For workers here, tariffs are a real concern.
It's going to hurt the steel industry.
It'll be bad for everybody.
So, you have to take it as it comes.
Just the threat of a 25% tax has already been weighing on steel producers for weeks, not to mention the industry's tens of thousands of employees.
Sales are slow. The order books are low. They've actually put a hiring on freeze on hiring.
Now tariffs could take effect in less than a month. Without an exemption for Canada, businesses could be devastated.
Many key sectors of the economy that rely on steel. It has an infrastructure and a defense application. So you really want your domestic industry protected.
It's a familiar fight. When Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on steel in 2018, Canadian exports sank almost immediately. The trade war ended a year later after huge disruptions to businesses on both sides of the border.
We've got a big problem in Canada. We've got to find another way to fuel our economic growth rather than relying on exports to this very, very unreliable trade partner.
In the Ontario border town of Windsor, across the river from Detroit, Ryan Jordan's company transforms steel into parts like railings. He weathered the tariff storm back in 2018.
It was difficult for us. We had to diversify. We're not sure how this is going to play out at this time.
What frightens him most, he says, is the possibility of even higher tariffs.
In a month, now it's 40%, and then a month later it's 50%. I don't know how anyone can survive even quoting a project for the future.
It seems anyone in business these days needs to have nerves of steel. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
So that's the story of steel. What about aluminum? Well, the U.S. gets more than half of its aluminum from Canadian businesses, using it in defense, shipbuilding, and auto sectors. And as Kwabena Oduro shows us, those businesses are mainly in Quebec, and they are feeling the uncertainty.
This Montreal area manufacturer of aluminum products makes poles and supports for streetlights and highway signage. Ever since Jorge Zelaya started working here 7 months ago, he's been worried about losing his job.
At the end of the day, it's the way that I provide food for my wife, for my kid, for myself also.
The company says about 30 to 40% of their production goes to the U.S., generating millions of dollars in annual revenue, and tariffs will only do harm.
The Quebec market is not big enough, for to sustain a plant like ours, so we do need shares of the American market.
In 2018, the last time aluminum tariffs were imposed, it was only 10%, but demand temporarily slowed from American buyers. This time, Bruno Mongrain says he's especially worried about counter tariffs because material travels back and forth between the two countries to finish products.
When they bring it into the U.S., it's a 25% tariff, and then we would buy these extrusions, and then another 25% tariff would be added on top of that. So this would create a lot of inflation in our prices.
Aluminum is Quebec's second largest industry, and all but one of the Canadian aluminum plants are based in Quebec. Now the Industry Association is calling on the province to help.
The government has to come in and help them on cash flow and also on keeping the link to market. So before thinking of diversification, you want to stay in the market.
The province says it's ready to help companies who rely on exports to the U.S.
We will be offering loans to these businesses with a very interesting interest rate.
Aluminum businesses like this one are now in the process of expanding to the rest of Canada. They say this will keep jobs here, ease the worry of employees, while keeping aluminum businesses thriving in Canada. Cubino Duro, CBC News, Saint-Julie, Quebec.
Now, Donald Trump is not backing down on his vision of Canada as a 51st state. Marina von Stackelberg shows us how Trump could try to force that and how Canadians are pushing back.
At Iqaluit's airport, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says Trump's aggression is a wake-up call.
Our military is weakened and our allies no longer respect us.
Poilievre says the Liberal government has failed to properly protect Canada's Arctic. If elected, he says the Conservatives would build a permanent military base in Iqaluit, hire 2,000 more Canadian Rangers to patrol the most remote parts of the country, and purchase 2 armed icebreakers for the Navy.
If we are to be a sovereign, self-reliant nation, we must take control of our north, secure all of our borders, and stand on our own 2 feet. We cannot count on the Americans to do it for us anymore.
China and Russia have long been seen as a threat to our northern sovereignty. But now the U.S. president muses almost daily about taking over all of Canada, in part because of our lack of defense.
They don't pay very much for military, and the reason they don't pay much is they assume that we're going to protect them. That's not an assumption they can make, because why are we protecting another country?
Countries don't have friends. They have interests. They don't have friends.
This expert warns Trump would not have to send in troops to take control of Canada.
The reality is you can do it by crippling the economic capabilities of your neighbor and therefore placing them in what could be, politely referred to as a vassal state.
Canadian officials maintain it's in the Americans' interest to keep protecting us.
If you don't defend Canada, you cannot have an effective defense for the U.S. We are all together.
It's a sentiment politicians here have long counted on, that Canada and the U.S. are natural allies with common interests, and our friend and neighbor to the south wouldn't pick a fight with us. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Donald Trump is stoking other tensions tonight, this time around the fragile Gaza ceasefire.
If all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off, and let hell break out.
Hamas had said it will stop releasing hostages, accusing Israel of breaking their agreement. Trump quickly added it's up to Israel to react as it sees fit. Well, given all of that, the ceasefire seems a greater risk than ever. As Chris Brown shows us, Donald Trump's audacious vision for Gaza isn't helping.
Ever in peril, the 3-week-old ceasefire in Gaza may now be in real trouble after Hamas said the next release of hostages set for Saturday would not happen.
They all need to come home now.
In a statement, Hamas accused Israel of violations by targeting returnees to northern Gaza with shelling and gunfire and failing to allow the entry of all forms of humanitarian aid as agreed upon. More than 1 million people in Gaza are sleeping outside in tents in awful conditions, and Hamas has said it wants better shelters and generators to produce heat.
Real estate development.
Donald Trump's comments have also infuriated Palestinians. In an interview with Fox News, he doubled down on the idea of expelling them from Gaza, clarifying that after they leave, they won't be allowed back.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return? No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing.
16 Israelis have been freed during this ceasefire, including this past weekend. But the fate of more than 35 other living hostages now appears in jeopardy. The men released Saturday looked gaunt and frail, prompting fierce exchanges in Israel's Knesset even before Hamas's announcement, with opposition members saying while the hostages were taken from their homes by Hamas, it's Netanyahu who's killing them.
In the worst case,
as mediators try to find solutions, this analyst fears Trump's day-after scenario for Gaza has undercut the negotiations.
If Trump continues to message the way that he is, in an unfocused way with fantastical ideas that have no connection to reality, you're going to see a return to violence.
Over 48,000 Gazans have been killed since the start of the war, but well-armed Hamas militants have attempted to show they are still in control and prepared to fight. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
The man accused of stabbing author Salman Rushdie at a public lecture is now on trial for attempted murder. The prosecution described how Hadi Matar rushed the stage with a knife in August of 2022, leaving Rushdie severely wounded and blind in one eye. The trial could take 2 weeks. Rushdie is expected to testify. And at least 55 people are dead in Guatemala after a bus crashed through a guardrail on a highway bridge and plunged into a ravine. More than 70 people were on the bus when the driver lost control, according to local authorities. The bus fell about 20 meters into wastewater below. Rescuers were able to free trapped survivors from the partially submerged bus. Officials say 53 bodies were recovered and 2 people died in hospital. And at least 1 person is dead and 4 others are injured after a private jet skidded off the runway and crashed into a parked plane at the Scottsdale airport in Arizona. This marks the latest aviation fatality in the U.S. following that mid-air collision between a plane and a helicopter in Washington, a medical plane crash in Philadelphia, and just last week, another crash in Alaska, killing all 10 on board. Well, in the midst of an election campaign in the province of Ontario, Doug Ford is heading to Washington to talk about the harms of tariffs.
We aren't going to roll over. There's one thing that President Trump has underestimated.
Why his opponents are trying to change the conversation. Next. Plus, they fled the war in Ukraine to come to Canada, but the program that brought them here is about to expire.
Why are we making them nervous and uncertain about their future here?
The urgent calls for an extension. And later, a ferociously big catch.
Everyone just went, whoa. And I said, yeah, that is an adult.
Researchers tag one for the record books. We're back in 2 weeks. Many across Newfoundland's Avalon Peninsula are cleaning up after a blizzard this weekend dumped as much as 38 centimeters of snow. The storm also saw winds gusting higher than 100 kilometers an hour. Many schools and businesses forced to close. Well, tonight, Doug Ford is getting ready to go to Washington in an effort to fight back against tariffs. The trip comes less than 3 weeks before Ontarians go to the polls. And as Jamie Strachan reports, as tariffs hang over the campaign, Ford's opponents want to change the conversation.
While the Chiefs and Eagles battled on the field,
we'll take the money that Ford wastes on bad deals and invest it where it matters.
Viewers in Ontario saw a battle of political ads during the commercial breaks.
When Ottawa descended into chaos, he stood up for us.
Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford's pitch in this snap election is simple. that he's the only one that can stand up to Donald Trump.
We aren't going to roll over. There's one thing that President Trump has underestimated.
Ford's taking the unusual step of heading to Washington in the middle of the campaign, leading a contingent set to meet with U.S. politicians and business leaders.
What we're going to communicate is everything the U.S. needs off of Canada, everything the U.S. needs off of Ontario.
Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie has been critical of the trip, calling it an inappropriate use of his office during an election.
It's very self-serving for him to distract Ontario residents from the fact that they're struggling and they don't have access to family doctor. He wants to make this about tariffs.
For Crombie, along with the NDP and Greens, there's a concerted effort to make this election about the 2.5 million Ontarians without a family doctor. Many recently lining up in the cold in Walkerton, about 3 hours northwest of Toronto, to try and get one.
Hospitals across Ontario are facing extreme pressure, with many emergency rooms having to close their doors. Patients are being treated in hallways.
The Trump factor has made it hard for his rivals to reach voters and cut into what most polls say is a double-digit lead for the Conservatives.
The headlines being made by the Trump administration and the threats of tariffs and economic havoc in Canada, it's really not been a great environment for the Liberals and New Democrats.
The four party leaders are set to debate this Friday, with one more possible before Ontario votes on February 27th. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
BC's police watchdog is investigating after a teenager was shot and killed by police. The RCMP responded on Sunday afternoon to reports of a person in distress in a Surrey schoolyard with a firearm. A CBC reporter has been shown security video from a nearby home of the person pointing what appears to be a handgun at their own head. Police can be heard shouting at the person not to harm themselves before the person appears to point the gun in the direction of police. Moments later, 2 gunshots could be heard. Ukrainians who escaped war to come to this country are facing uncertainty again, with a government program set to expire.
Paperwork is every time stressful, especially in our situation.
Calls for the government to extend their visas. Plus, why is Donald Trump targeting Canadian steel and aluminum again?
We need great steel makers, great aluminum makers for defense.
Andrew Chang will break that down. And are those tariffs just part of a bigger plan to make Canada the 51st state? White House correspondent Josh Wingrove will join Paul Hunter to look at what could be the president's real motivations. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. Seems a mystery has been revealed below this Picasso painting, the portrait of a woman as of yet unidentified. Art historians found it through infrared imaging and x-rays. Pablo Picasso covered it up in 1901 with a portrait of a sculptor friend right at the start of his blue period. Well, there are calls tonight for Ottawa to make it easier for hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians living in Canada to extend their visas. They arrived under a temporary program to help flee a war that's not over. But as Kayla Hounsell reports, that program is about to expire.
Housekeeping.
Kate Mokrush is the manager of housekeeping at a Halifax hotel, but she used to be the general manager of a hotel in Ukraine. Huddled under stairways at home in Kyiv, her family made the difficult decision to leave. But before they had even arrived in Canada in 2022, they got tangled in a web of paperwork mistakes through no fault of their own.
Paperwork is every time stressful, especially in our situation.
Now they have to do more paperwork to extend their work visas because the program under which they came to Canada is set to expire March 31st.
They're working, they're integrating in our communities, we welcome them here. Why are we making them nervous and uncertain about their future here?
The Ukrainian-Canadian Congress is calling on the federal government to extend the whole program for Ukrainians for another 3 years. Nearly 300,000 Ukrainians came to Canada this way. The government says it has no intention of sending anyone back while the war continues, but it is refusing a blanket extension.
Paperwork is stressful.
I understand that, but we also needed to understand how many people are living and working here. I think it's very little to ask in this context.
The program gave Ukrainians access to free language classes and work visas. To extend them usually requires a valid passport, which some are struggling to renew. The government is promising flexibility.
It's a very uncertain situation.
Mokrush says she'll apply for the extension next month. She gains strength from the chaos that comes with raising kids, watching them learn English and French, and develop a passion for Canada's national sport. They say their ultimate goal is to become permanent residents as they put together a new life, one piece at a time. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Tonight, Donald Trump announces another tariff. U.S. imports of steel and aluminum to be taxed at 25%, a new executive order for an old idea.
2018-19 was really a sign that this was not well conceived in the first place.
We'll break down what it means for Canada, but first.
Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum too.
10%?
25%.
25 for aluminum.
25 for both.
So that's how we all found out. Probing questions from Canadian journalist Josh Wingrove. He and our Paul Hunter are here to bring us up to speed. Paul Hunter's in Washington, so is Bloomberg White House reporter Josh Wingrove. So, Josh, let's start with you. You're the Canadian in every room, it seems, that Donald Trump is in. You were on board Air Force One over the weekend. What's your gut telling you about why he's fixated on Canada? Is it because you keep asking him these questions? Or is it, as the Prime Minister says, critical minerals? He hasn't said it yet. Is it water? Like, what's happening?
Well, I don't think it's door number one, although I've seen that theory floated. I appreciate people that think I've got a lot more power than I do. I think what's important here to note is he keeps bringing it up. You know, he brings up Canada when asked about other things, whether it's Mexico or tariffs. And that was the case yesterday when he spoke to us on Air Force One, where he was being asked about steel in the context of U.S. Steel, a company that the Japanese are trying to buy, or at least a Japanese company is. He sort of volunteered and popped off that these tariffs announced tonight are coming in. Now, I should note they're announced with a significant lag time, and he's saying essentially that he's going to hit Canada with the 25% steel tariffs that he had exempted them from in the first term, or at least by the end of it, and raise the aluminum tariff to 25% from 10, and also apply that to Canada. But the same deadline that he has deferred the overall tariff threat to. So that, of course, is going to kick off questions about whether there is some sort of grand bargain in the offing. But I think that people are maybe missing that Trump has sort of Canada stuck in his mind. And he brings it back often to a few subjects. One yesterday was defense spending. Canada's being a laggard in NATO spending target has been long an issue for the president, as has all countries' NATO spending has been an issue. And I think it just seems that he can apply pressure, including by threatening yesterday to, change something related to autos with the flick of a pen, that he could sort of crush Canada's auto sector. So right now, I think overall, the measure is not entirely clear, but, Canadian steel companies, of course, are going to be happy that this tariff on steel is not kicking in immediately, but isn't kicking in instead on March 4th. And now, of course, the question will turn to what they can get done by then. But it has certainly been an unusual one. You can imagine what it's like being, be Canadian in the American press corps, trying to do my job and just get news out of this guy.
Yeah, no kidding. So Paul, you looked at what Donald Trump signed today. What does it tell you about what's coming?
Well, look, I mean, technically this all comes under what's known as Section 232 in U.S. trade law, Adrian, which allows for kind of a workaround on trade deals that the U.S. has signed on to, all in the name of national security. In other words, declare something a threat or risk to U.S. national security, and you can apply tariffs despite trade deals, for example, to protect against that threat or risk. In this case, steel and aluminum. What's the security risk? Well, one could say if the U.S. deems it's too reliant on foreign steel and aluminum, such that it's, if it's cut off, the U.S. might not be able to build battleships and fighter jets in a time of war. Well, that's the security risk. As unlikely as it seems Canada would cut off such stuff in that way, that's the argument. Section 232 gives the U.S. president the ability to basically call almost anything a national security risk and act accordingly as a result. And these tariffs announced today fall under that justification. He strongly believes in tariffs, Adrian, and clearly he's willing to use them.
And he's done it before, right? Not the first time Canada's steel and aluminum industry was hit by tariffs. Why do you think he wants to do it again? Did it work that well for him?
Yeah, it's not the first time. I mean, he's imposed a lot of them before, and he'll likely continue to impose them regardless of where this latest round ends up taking him. I mean, he campaigned on tariffs. And look at him in office right now, emboldened like never before, flooding the zone, as they say, with so many executive orders, directives, threats, and beyond. In 2018, he imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. At that time, it was 25% and 10%, respectively. And Canada retaliated with targeted tariffs in America. By 2019, the next year, Canada was exempted from the U.S. tariffs, and then Canada dropped its tariffs against U.S. goods. This came when the countries ratified the new NAFTA, something some believe Trump now wants negotiated again, and that all of this might simply be a tool aimed at forcing that new renegotiation. But there's another reason, Adrian. Tariffs are basically taxes on goods coming into America. Every dollar collected by a tariff is a dollar that goes into U.S. government coffers at a time Trump needs to find a way to pay for tax cuts he promised during his campaign for the White House. This, in theory, could do that. And so in no small way, Trump could see it as allowing him to make that tax cut. But truly, the tricky part in answering any question about Trump's thinking, Adrian, what's actually truly behind all this is that no one really knows.
So, Josh, we only have about 30 seconds left. And I'm curious, you were talking about being in the room. What have you been able to glean from the reaction of his advisors in the room when he talks about Canada, and then how they respond to you and the media after?
The president's allies are signal boosting his complaints about Canada, even the ones like on fentanyl. You don't have a lot of data to support, large volumes of fentanyl coming across the border. I think what's important to understand here is that there's a bipartisan consensus that trade is broken and has problems. Both parties have issues with USMCA. Trump is trying to completely remake it. He wants to lower the corporate tax rate for companies that make their things in America. He wants to add general tariffs, including on Canada. He wants to add extra sectoral ones, like on steel, but also like on pharmaceuticals and computer chips. I mean, this is all part of a mix to sort of onshore things. He keeps saying he wants to make cars in Detroit. I think these are all warning signs for Canada, even if there is some kind of grand bargain here. Clearly, Trump does not like the status quo.
All right. Josh Wingrove and Paul Hunter, thank you both.
Thank you.
Coming up, so again, this isn't the first time Trump has hit Canada with steel and aluminum tariffs. He did it back in 2018.
I think most people in that industry will tell you it didn't work. The people that were most severely punished by those tariffs weren't Canadian steel producers.
So why is Trump doing it again? What is different this time? Andrew Chang breaks that down next. So just as he did 7 years ago, Donald Trump is aiming tariffs at Canadian steel and aluminum.
As the price went up, they just couldn't bear the cost, so they started laying people off.
Back then, it brought pain to domestic markets on both sides of the border. So just how costly might it be this time? Andrew Chang, host of CBC News, is about that, breaks it all down.
At this point, you might be thinking, boy, Trump really has it out for Canada. A new tax, a tariff on all steel and aluminum imports.
We're doing a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum.
Yes, this would affect all countries. But you know who this hits the hardest? Canada is the leading exporter of steel to the United States, responsible for about 1/5 of all U.S. steel imports, worth around $8-9 billion US last year. And here's aluminum. Again, Canada is the top exporter to the US, and it's not even close. It sends the US more aluminum every year than every other country combined. But the US has tried this before.
When it comes to a time when our country can't make aluminum and steel, you almost don't have much of a country.
It slapped a tax on steel and aluminum imports in 2018 during Trump's first term. And you know what happened? The price of cars went up. All that aluminum in cans drove up the price of soft drinks and beer too. And appliances across the board, they all became more expensive. So why try this again? It's telling that the earliest praise we saw for Trump's new plan to tax foreign steel and aluminum came from American producers. The American Iron and Steel Institute, which represents steelworkers across the U.S., welcomes President Trump's continued commitment to a strong American steel industry, which is essential to America's national security and economic prosperity. Let's pick up on that last part. National security was the legal basis for putting a 25% tariff on steel back in 2018.
We need great steel makers, great aluminum makers for defense.
The idea being, just think of all the things that require steel and aluminum in the first place. Military vehicles, weapons, critical infrastructure, renewable energy. These all rely on steel and or aluminum that the US can't produce enough of domestically. So it counts on the rest of the world selling it what it needs. That's maybe a dangerous spot to be in, but there was also a business case.
I don't think it ever had anything to do with making America safer. It had to do, in his mind, with making America's steel industry stronger. And he used those national emergency measures simply as a justification to impose the tariffs.
The World Steel Association has a pretty good representation of the top steel producers in the world. And that huge circle in Asia, that's China. No country produces as much steel as China. And China sells steel all over the world at artificially low prices, say critics and Trump himself.
Back in 2018, he felt that there was foreign steel and aluminum being dumped into the United States. Dumped means that they're selling it for less in the United States than they're selling it in their home market.
China's cheap steel has an impact on the price of all steel globally. And Trump would argue this hurts American producers.
The Americans don't like that. They want to keep steel prices high to support American steel producers in America. And the way to do that, they say, is to put up these tariffs on everybody. And Canada sort of gets caught in the crossfire of that.
Problem is, if Trump wants to revitalize American steel, it has a long way to go. This is what the industry looks like, courtesy of the Federal Reserve. The gray shaded columns, those are US recessions. But overall, over the last 50 plus years, US raw steel production has cratered. The industry is no longer the production powerhouse it once was. There are lots of reasons for this.
If you look back at what the American economy was doing in the 80s and the 90s and the 70s, they were building a ton of stuff and they needed a ton of steel to do that. And now, the economy is much more technologically based and we're not building these giant, enormous, colossal warehouses anymore.
China is the biggest producer of steel in the world, but Canadian and U.S. steel companies really have not kept up with the technology and not made the capital investments required.
And ultimately, when Trump did impose a 25% tax on steel imports in 2018, the whole exercise just didn't last very long. Look again at all the zigs and zags of U.S. domestic steel production. We can zoom right into March 2018, when Trump's tariffs first went into effect, and we can see a small spike. Steel imports went way down during this period, by the way, and American producers did try to pick up the slack. But before even the end of the calendar year, U.S. production started sinking again. And we started to see headlines like this, as the industry was faced with the problem that made it uncompetitive in the first place. It just costs more to make steel in the US. Otherwise, they wouldn't import it for cheaper. Demand and production fell.
As the price went up, they just couldn't bear the cost, so they started laying people off. Then they went to the White House and said, we can't continue like this. This is going to cost American jobs. The people that were most severely punished by those tariffs weren't Canadian steel producers, it was American buyers of Canadian steel.
Ultimately, Trump removed tariffs on Canadian steel, its #1 importer, by May 2019. The tariffs barely lasted a year.
The revocation of the tariffs back in 2018-19 was really a sign that this was not well conceived in the first place. Whatever he thought he was going to accomplish, it didn't get accomplished.
Fast forward to today, US steel production right now is actually lower than it was in 2017 pre-tariffs. Aluminum production, almost 10% less. Meanwhile, When you make things like steel and aluminum more expensive, lots of other things become more expensive too. It's hard to overstate just how wide-reaching the impact is when you increase the cost of a basic building block like steel or aluminum. Consider just the military applications: warships, submarines, tanks, fighter jets, guns, shells, missile casings. Or think about construction: bridges, highways, transmission towers, power lines, railways, pipelines, solar panels, wind turbines. All of these things become more expensive when steel and aluminum become more expensive. To the point where, in some cases, the US Federal Reserve Board found that any benefits of increased import protection are offset by increases in costs. And if you want to see how that math translates to reality, consider how the Peterson Institute for International Economics crunched those numbers. It figured Trump's first round of steel tariffs in 2018 would create 8,700 jobs in steel, raising revenues by $2.4 billion in 2018, but increasing costs for everyone who uses steel by about $5.6 billion. Cost per job, 650 grand. That's where you likely would have felt the pinch, with cars and trucks, construction and appliances all becoming more expensive.
You're driving up the cost of the end product, whether that's cans of beer or appliances or cars or car parts. All of those things get more expensive as a result. And we saw that happen in 2018. We're expecting, if this goes ahead, we'll see it happen this time. It is simple economics.
So the big question right now is why? Why impose roughly the same tariffs on steel and aluminum Trump already tried to impose 7 years ago, knowing now how that story ended? Is this about applying maximum pressure on Canada?
The steel industry in Canada employs close to 25,000 people. I think it would have a devastating impact on the Canadian steel industry.
Tariffs at 25% going into one of our main markets will be devastating, and we really can't let this happen.
Or is this about revitalizing American industry?
Industrial policy plays large with a lot of America's competitors. So unless you have a long-term vision and money behind it, it's going to be difficult to turn it around.
Tariffs and trade protection are very inefficient. They create supply chain disruptions and constrain the flow of goods and services through the supply chain.
Or is this about correcting a global market?
China makes more steel than basically everybody else combined. They sell that steel at very cheap rates around the world. That drives down the price of steel for everybody else.
Whatever the answer, this is one of Trump's plans, which we've actually seen before. It's already been tried. Whether it worked, Adrian, is a whole other story.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Coming up, a true giant of the deep comes to the surface.
Biggest male white shark that we have ever tagged and released that is a proper adult.
How and why researchers pulled off this colossal catch and release. Next, in our moment. Okay, so the massive shark you see there, caught and released by researchers off the coast of Florida, is the largest male white shark that they have ever tagged. So weighing roughly 750 kilograms, stretching more than 4 meters long, the ocean giant was lovingly dubbed Contender. So tonight, Contender's catch and release is our moment.
Everyone just went, whoa, and I said, yes, that is an adult. We had fished all day, no success. We were gonna head back. And of course, we started having our shark activity. We went right over and grabbed him and pulled him up next to the boat. It was very apparent that he was a sizable animal. There was a lot of excitement, but I don't think we realized how big he was until we actually got a tape measure on him. He's about 750 kilos or about 1,650 pounds. And he's about 13.8 feet or 4.2 meters, which is the biggest male white shark that we have ever tagged and released. That is a proper adult male animal. The animal we tracker, it's mounted on the dorsal fin, and you're able to track that animal to answer all the little pieces of the life history of a white shark. Where are they born? Where do they die? What do they eat? So he's an important piece of seeing white sharks come back and sharks in general thrive in the Western North Atlantic.
So why, you might be wondering, are we talking about a giant white shark that lurks near Florida? Well, of course, there is a Canadian connection. The previous big guy was named Bob. He was tagged off the coast of Nova Scotia. And here's something to look forward to. They believe that Contender's path will put him in Canadian waters around May or June. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to The National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.